When my brother showed up at my office that morning, broke, hollow-eyed, and shaking, I didn't recognize him at first. His designer suit was gone. His hair was unkempt. He looked smaller somehow, like the arrogance had been drained right out of him. He tried to smile, but it broke halfway through. "Don," he said, voice cracking. "You're the only one who can help me." His words took me back to the day everything fell apart. The day my brother took everything that should have been mine, my home, my inheritance, my dignity, and the way he smirked as I walked out of the lawyer's office with nothing but my father's old watch. That was the day I promised myself they'd never see me beg. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever had someone take everything you earned and laugh while they did it, this story is for you. Hit that subscribe button, drop a heart in the comments, and let's dive into a story where revenge isn't loud or violent. It's quiet, patient, and absolutely unforgettable. I'd spent nearly my entire adult life taking care of my parents, managing their bills, fixing the house, skipping vacations so I could stay nearby when mom's health began to fail. My younger brother, Eric, was the golden boy, the charming one, the success story who never worked a full week in his life. He'd roll into town twice a year, flash his new car, bring flowers for mom, and somehow leave as the hero. Meanwhile, I was the one scrubbing floors, arguing with insurance reps, and making sure the lights stayed on. You never forget the sound of hospital machines, the slow, rhythmic beeping that somehow sounds more alive than the person it's attached to. I'd been sleeping in that chair for 3 nights straight, back stiff, eyes burning, hands wrapped around a cup of cold coffee that tasted like cardboard. The nurses had stopped trying to send me home. My mother, Teresa, she'd been fading for weeks, the cancer eating her faster than any of us expected. My father, David, sat silently by her side, holding her hand like it was the only thing anchoring him to this world. He'd barely spoken in days. I don't think he knew how to face losing her. I wasn't sure I did either. That's when Eric arrived. My younger brother, the golden child, waltzed into that room like he was stepping onto a stage. Fresh haircut, designer jacket, coffee from the cafe downstairs. "Mom," he said with a bright, almost theatrical smile, "you look great today." I watched her eyes light up for the first time in hours. She reached for him weakly, her lips trembling into something that almost resembled joy. I wanted to hate him for it, for how easily he could make her smile, but I didn't. I just stood there, invisible, holding the cup that had gone cold in my hand. Eric stayed 20 minutes, told a few stories, kissed her forehead, promised he'd visit again soon. Then he left, leaving the scent of expensive cologne in the stale air of that hospital room. When the door closed behind him, my mother's hand fell back to the bed, and the light drained from her eyes. "Such a good boy," she whispered. I swallowed hard and nodded. Yeah, he really is. When we were kids, I used to think love was something you could earn. If you worked hard enough, behaved long enough, maybe one day you'd deserve it. Eric didn't need to earn anything. He was the charming one, the kid who could break a vase and get a hug for being too energetic. I was the fixer, the one who swept up the shards and got told to be more patient with your brother. By the time we were teenagers, I'd stopped expecting fairness. Mom doted on him. Dad stayed quiet, and I learned to live with silence. 2 weeks later, she was gone. We buried her on a gray morning, the kind that smells like rain and wilted flowers. People said all the usual things: she's in a better place, she'll always be with you. But none of it filled the emptiness. Eric stood at the front, soaking in the attention, looking every bit the grieving son in his tailored suit. Dad stood beside him, stooped, frail. I was in the background, like always, the extra in my own family's story. After the burial, I stayed behind. My father, David, looked smaller than I remembered, a man once steady as a wall, now trembling under his own breath. "Your mother wanted things done a certain way," he said quietly. I nodded. I know. I didn't realize he meant more than the funeral. Dad followed her barely a month after she passed. His heart just stopped. The doctor said it was natural. I called it grief. The second funeral was smaller, quieter. Even Eric didn't have much to say that day. Maybe for once, the silence humbled him. I remember standing by the graves, both their names carved into the same headstone, Teresa and David Miller, beloved parents. I wanted to believe the beloved part. And then came the day I'll never forget: the reading of the will. They'd signed it months earlier, back when Mom's condition first began to worsen. A decision meant to bring peace of mind, though none of us realized how soon it would matter. We gathered in Mr. Henderson's office, a place that smelled like old books and coffee gone stale. I sat quietly, expecting maybe a fair split, maybe even just acknowledgement. But when Mr. Henderson cleared his throat and read, "The entirety of the Miller estate, including the family home and assets, shall go to Eric Miller," I felt my stomach drop. I waited for him to correct himself. He didn't. A long silence. Then, "To our eldest son, Daniel Miller, we leave David's wristwatch, a symbol of endurance, responsibility, and time well spent." That was it. A lifetime of care, erased with a line and a signature. Mr. Henderson hesitated before looking up. There was pity in his eyes, the quiet kind that hurts more than cruelty. Eric leaned back in his chair, that smug little grin creeping across his face. He didn't even try to look sorry. My aunt coughed to hide a laugh. And I realized this wasn't a mistake. They all knew. My mother had always favored Eric, but I never thought she'd erase me from her final act. Even my father, who never spoke up, had signed those papers. It felt like I'd spent my entire life paying a debt that was never mine. When it ended, Eric walked up, patted my shoulder, and said, "Hey bro, you can crash at the guest house for a while if you need. No hard feelings." That was the moment I knew I had to leave. Not just the house, not just the town, everything. I shook his hand, looked him dead in the eye, and said, "No hard feelings. Just remember this day, Eric. One day I will." Then I packed a single suitcase, walked out the front door, and left behind the only life I'd ever known. Starting over at 36 isn't glamorous. The first year was brutal. I took a small job at a construction supply warehouse in a nearby city. It was hard labor lifting, sorting, loading, but for the first time in years, I was building something that belonged to me. I lived in a tiny apartment, ate canned soup, and saved every spare dollar. Most nights I'd fall asleep on the couch with my hands covered in grease. And when it got tough, I'd remember Eric's smirk across that lawyer's desk. That memory became my fuel. One evening, after most of the crew had clocked out, I stayed behind fixing a forklift engine that refused to start. That's when Mr. Thompson appeared, the owner of the company. A tall man with silver hair, weathered hands, and the kind of eyes that could tell if you were wasting potential. "You've got good hands," he said, watching me wipe the grease off my palms. "Just trying to keep it running," I replied. He chuckled. That's how every good business starts, keeping things running. Over the next few months, he started noticing me, asking questions. "Where'd you learn to work like that?" "Years of cleaning up other people's messes," I said. He was an older man, sharp as a blade, and he liked that I didn't complain. One day he asked me to help with inventory tracking and logistics, said I was wasting potential on heavy lifting. That single opportunity changed everything. Mr. Thompson became my mentor. He taught me how to negotiate, how to read people, how to think like a business owner. He believed in me before I even knew how to believe in myself. Over the next 5 years, I saved enough to start a small contracting supply business. It was modest at first, a rented office, one delivery truck, and a cheap coffee machine that sounded like it was dying. But I worked every day. No shortcuts, no excuses, and slowly, clients started trusting me. Meanwhile, I heard bits and pieces about Eric through family gossip. He'd turned the inheritance into a showpiece, lavish parties, expensive vacations, flashy cars. He opened a real estate company that existed mostly on paper. For a while, people thought he was untouchable. But the thing about easy money, it disappears the same way it came. Within a few years, his ventures started collapsing. He borrowed against the house, sold family heirlooms, even mortgaged the land our grandfather built from nothing. Still, the parties continued. Because Eric couldn't stand the thought of anyone realizing the truth that without the inheritance, he was nothing. And me? I kept building. Every night before bed, I'd wind my father's watch. It wasn't just time I was keeping. It was a promise. A promise that one day, the people who called me nothing would see exactly what nothing could become. By my 10th year in business, I owned 3 warehouses and a staff of 50. We supplied equipment to half the construction firms in the state. I wasn't a millionaire yet, but I was free. No one could take what I'd earned, and that, to me, was worth everything. It was a Saturday morning when I ran into Brenda, my cousin, at a coffee shop. She looked older, tired. We hadn't seen each other in over a decade, but she recognized me instantly. "Dan?" she said, eyes wide. You look different. We talked for hours. She told me about the family, how the old house was foreclosed, how Eric's empire had crumbled. He was living off short-term gigs, drowning in debt, and avoiding calls from creditors. Apparently, even his friends had turned on him. When I told her what I'd built, she just sat there, stunned. She said quietly, "You always deserved better, Dan. I wish Aunt Teresa had seen this." I smiled, but deep down, I didn't care if she had. For once, I didn't need her approval. A few months later, Brenda called again. Her voice was shaky. "Dan, Eric's asking for you. He wants to see you." He showed up at my office on a gray Thursday afternoon. I was reviewing shipment logs when my assistant buzzed in. "There's a man here says he's your brother." When I stepped out and saw him, I almost didn't recognize him. Gone was the cocky grin, the designer clothes. He looked small. His suit was frayed, his eyes sunken, and for the first time in my life, I saw fear in them. "Dan," he started, voice breaking. I messed up. Everything's gone. The bank took the house, the cars, everything. I just need a little help, maybe a loan, just to get back on my feet." He tried to laugh it off, but his voice cracked halfway through. And in that moment, every memory flashed through my mind. The will reading, the smirks, the humiliation, the years of silence. But I didn't feel anger. I felt peace. I told him, "Eric, I'm sorry for what you're going through. But I can't fix what you broke." He tried to interrupt, but I kept going. "When Mom and Dad chose you, I thought I'd lost everything. Turns out, they freed me. I'd built my own life, and I'm not giving it away, not even to family." His shoulders slumped. He whispered, "So that's it? You're just done with us?" I nodded. "No, Eric, you were done with me a long time ago." He froze. I asked him, "Eric, do you remember what Dad's watch said on the back?" He frowned. "What?" I pulled it from my wrist, turned it over, and showed him. "Time reveals all." His eyes darted to it, then to me. "I used to think that meant patience," I said. "Now I know it means truth." He said nothing. For the first time in my life, I saw him speechless. He left without another word. And as the door closed behind him, I felt something heavy lift off my chest. Not triumph, not gloating. Just release. That night, back home, I placed the watch beside a framed photo, my parents at their wedding, smiling. I didn't wind it. I let it rest. Some things aren't meant to start again. They're meant to remind you how precious time really is. A year later, I bought the old Miller property back from the bank. Not because I wanted to live there, but because I needed to see it one last time. The paint was peeling, the garden overgrown. It looked nothing like the home I'd once fought to protect. I renovated it, fixed every board and broken tile, and then I sold it. For a profit, sure, but more importantly, for closure. I didn't need the ghosts of that house anymore. Brenda still visits sometimes. We have coffee and talk about life, not the past. Eric, as far as I know, moved to another state, still chasing the next big thing. I wish him well, I really do. Because my revenge was never about ruining him. It was about proving to myself that I could survive without anyone's permission, and I did. You know, people think revenge is about payback. It's not. It's about peace, about walking away knowing you don't owe anyone an explanation. Some battles aren't won by fighting louder. They're won by building something so strong that your silence becomes the loudest answer. If you've ever been betrayed but came out stronger, this story's for you. Hit that like button if you believe success is the best revenge. Drop a heart in the comments if you ever proved someone wrong without saying a word. And don't forget to subscribe because the best stories are the ones life writes for us.